The Atlantic wind howled like a banshee against the Blackrock Cove lighthouse, whipping salt spray against the thick, curved glass of the lantern room. Inside, Elara Vance tightened the woolen shawl around her shoulders, her knuckles white on the cold brass railing. Solitude wasn't just a preference for her. It was a necessity, a balm for wounds that still ached years after the accident that claimed her husband and son. The rhythmic groan of the massive Fresnel lens turning overhead, the steady thump, thump, thump of the diesel generator in the basement, the endless crash of waves against the jagged cliffs below. These were her companions now. No tourists, no chatter, just the raw, untamed edge of the world. She'd taken the remote keeper position on the desolate Maine peninsula, specifically to escape the suffocating pity of well-meaning friends. Tonight, a particularly vicious nor'easter raged, isolating the lighthouse completely. The causeway submerged. The mainland a distant memory swallowed by the storm. Elara finished her log entry. Wind, 65 knots. Visibility, near zero generator. Stable, and descended the spiral iron staircase to the main keeper's cottage. She lit an oil lamp, its warm flickering light a small defiance against the howling darkness. As she prepared a simple meal of stew, a violent crack echoed from the direction of the shore, louder than the thunder. Not lightning. Something heavier, denser, metal tearing. Her pulse quickened. Curiosity warred with caution. Blackrock Cove was notorious for shipwrecks, but this storm was keeping even the hardiest lobster boats in harbor. Grabbing her heavy-duty flashlight and a thick oilskin coat, she wrestled the cottage door open against the gale and stepped into the maelstrom. The wind nearly knocked her off her feet. Rain lashed her face like icy needles. She fought her way down the slick rocky path towards the cove's small, natural harbor, the beam of her flashlight cutting a feeble swath through the deluge. Halfway down she saw it, a twisted, smoldering mass of silvery, organic-looking material embedded in the rocks just above the high tide line. It wasn't a boat. It wasn't anything she recognized. It looked like a giant, fractured seashell woven from moonlight and obsidian, its edges still pulsing with a faint, internal blue luminescence. Wisps of acrid smoke curled from its ruptured surface, instantly shredded by the wind. Heart hammering against her ribs, Elara approached cautiously. As she drew nearer, her light caught a shape huddled against the wreckage. A person, but wrong. Slender, impossibly so, draped in tattered, iridescent fabric that seemed to drink the light rather than reflect it. Long, silver-white hair, plastered wet against a skull that was slightly elongated, framed a face of startling beauty. High cheekbones, skin like polished moonstone, and eyes, large, almond-shaped, and glowing with a soft, internal golden light. He was shivering violently, one arm clutched to his side. Dark, viscous fluid, not blood, it shimmered faintly, seeping between his fingers. He wore no shoes. His bare feet were cut and bleeding on the sharp rocks. "Hey!" Elara shouted over the storm, kneeling beside him, her flashlight beam trembling. "Are you hurt? Can you understand me?" The alien's golden eyes snapped open, wide with pain and fear. He flinched away, trying to scramble back, but a gasp of agony stopped him. He spoke, but the words were a cascade of soft chimes and clicks, utterly alien. He pointed a long, slender finger towards the wreckage, then made a slashing motion across his own throat, his eyes darting fearfully out to the churning, ink-black sea. Elara didn't understand the words, but the terror was universal. "It's okay," she said, her voice surprisingly calm despite the adrenaline surge. "You're safe here. For now. I'm Elara. I'm taking you inside." She shrugged off her heavy oilskin coat, draping it around his thin frame. He was shockingly light, almost fragile. As she gently helped him stand, supporting his weight, her hand brushed against his bare forearm near the injury. A tiny, almost invisible speck of the same shimmering blue luminescence that pulsed in the wreckage detached itself and leapt onto her skin just below her wrist. It felt like a cool drop of water, then vanished, leaving only a faint tingling warmth and a barely visible, intricate blue tracery on her skin. She ignored it, focusing on getting him up the treacherous path to the cottage. He leaned heavily on her, his strange eyes scanning the storm-lashed cliffs with paranoid intensity, his breathing shallow and rapid. Inside the warm, dry cottage, she guided him to the worn sofa before the stone fireplace. She stoked the banked embers into a blaze, the sudden warmth a stark contrast to the storm outside. She fetched clean cloths and warm water, her nurse's training kicking in. As she gently peeled back the torn, iridescent fabric from his side, she saw the wound, a cauterized gash, edges still faintly glowing blue, oozing the shimmering fluid. It looked like it had been burned by intense energy. "Okay," Elara murmured, more to herself than him. "Clean it, stop the bleeding if I can." She worked methodically, her touch firm, but gentle. The alien watched her every move, his golden eyes unblinking. The fear still present, but now mixed with a flicker of wary curiosity. When she finished cleaning the wound and applied a clean bandage, he reached out a trembling hand. Not towards the wound, but towards the faint blue tracery now visible on her inner wrist. He touched it lightly with a single cool fingertip. A jolt, not painful but intensely strange, shot up Elara's arm. Images flooded her mind, fragmented but clear. A vast crystalline city under a triple sun sky. A sleek, organic-looking vessel soaring between stars. A sudden, violent assault by angular, brutal ships spewing crimson energy beams. The desperate escape in the fractured shell. The searing pain of the crash. She gasped, pulling her hand back. The alien, Kaelen, the name resonated in her mind along with the images, nodded slowly, his expression grave. "They hunt," he whispered, the words now forming in her mind directly, clear and precise, though his lips barely moved. "Veridian Corp, they want the Lumen." He gestured weakly towards his injured side, then pointed to the faint blue mark on Elara's wrist. "It bonded to you." "The Lumen?" Elara asked, the mental connection making speech feel unnecessary. Yet she still formed the words. "The source," Kaelen projected, his mental voice strained with pain and exhaustion. "Not a device. A symbiote. Living Starlight. It powers my people's ships' heals, but Veridian. They harvest it, force it, weaponize it. I stole this one, the last pure one, to save it, to save my world." He winced, clutching his side. The crash damaged it. It sought a host, you. Before Elara could process this impossible revelation, a living star bonded to her. A new sound cut through the storm's roar. Not thunder. A deep, resonant thrum, mechanical and alien, vibrating the very stones of the cottage. It came from the sea. Kaelen's eyes widened in pure terror. "They found us. Faster than I feared." He tried to rise but collapsed back, too weak. Elara rushed to the window, peering through the rain-streaked glass. Out in the churning blackness of the cove, cutting through the waves with impossible speed despite the storm, were 3 sleek, black vessels. They had no visible decks, no running lights, just smooth, predatory hulls that seemed to absorb the lighthouse beam. Crimson searchlights, sharp and intense, swept across the water and the cliffs, one beam sweeping perilously close to the cottage windows. "Veridian patrol craft," Kaelen hissed mentally. "They track the Lumen's resonance. They will scan the shore. You must hide me. And the Lumen, if they find it bonded to you." "But where?" Elara scanned the small cottage. The lighthouse tower itself was too exposed. Then she remembered the old storm cellar, accessed by a trapdoor hidden under a rug in the kitchen, a relic from when the keepers stored supplies. "Here." She grabbed Kaelen's arm, hauling him up with surprising strength born of adrenaline. "Down. Now!" She pulled him towards the kitchen, yanked up the rug, and threw open the heavy wooden trapdoor. A damp, earthy smell rose from the darkness below. She half-dragged, half-carried Kaelen down the rough-hewn steps into the cool, cramped space, pulling the trapdoor shut above them just as the crimson searchlight beams swept across the cottage's kitchen window, illuminating the dust motes in the air like malevolent fireflies. They huddled in the near-total darkness, Elara's heart pounding loud enough to drown out the storm above. Kaelen pressed himself against the earthen wall, his golden eyes wide, his breath coming in shallow gasps. Elara felt the faint blue mark on her wrist grow noticeably warmer. Minutes stretched into an agonizing eternity. They heard the crunch of heavy boots on the rocky path outside, the harsh, guttural commands of men speaking a language that sounded like grinding stone. A flashlight beam swept across the cellar trapdoor. Elara held her breath, pressing a hand over Kaelen's mouth as he started to make a soft, distressed sound. The beam lingered, then moved on. They heard the front door of the cottage being forced open with a splintering crash. Shouts echoed above, the sound of furniture being overturned, drawers yanked open. The intruders were searching systematically. Kaelen trembled against her. They have resonance scanners. His mental voice was a terrified whisper in her mind. They will find the Lumen signature. Eventually. They will tear this place apart. What do we do? Elara projected back, panic clawing at her throat. The Cove, Kaelen sent, his mental voice gaining a sliver of urgency. The old smuggler's cave, behind the waterfall, during high tide, hidden. Entrance only accessible by sea, or through the sea caves from the south shore. We must reach it before the tide turns. It's a mile through this storm. You can barely stand. I can guide you. For a short time. The Lumen, it can help, but it is weak. And dangerous. Unstable. He looked at her wrist, then met her eyes. It may hurt you. Above, the search intensified. A boot stomped directly over the trapdoor. Nothing in the main house. A rough voice barked. Check the outbuildings, and scan the perimeter again. The signature is faint, but definite. It's here. No choice, Elara thought grimly. Show me the way. Now. Kaelen nodded. He placed his cool hand over the blue mark on her wrist. The warmth intensified, becoming a burning heat that spread up her arm. Suddenly, the darkness of the cellar wasn't absolute. She could see the rough walls, the ladder, Kaelen's pale face, not with light but with a strange internal perception. Like seeing heat signatures, but layered with intricate patterns of energy flow. She felt a surge of unnatural strength and clarity, but also a sharp, electric pain lancing up her arm. The Lumen's power, Kaelen's voice echoed, strained. It sees what I see. For a moment. Go! Elara threw open the trapdoor. The cottage above was a mess, chairs overturned, drawers spilled. Two burly men in dark, armored suits stood near the stove, holding devices that emitted a low, pulsing hum. Their screens glowing crimson. They whirled at the sound, raising weapons that looked like brutalist revolvers with glowing barrels. Hey! Down there! One yelled, raising his weapon. Elara didn't hesitate. She shoved Kaelen towards the back door, then grabbed the heavy iron poker from beside the fireplace and hurled it with all her might. It wasn't aimed at the men, but at the kerosene lantern on the table. It shattered the glass globe, dousing the room in flammable liquid and igniting a sudden fierce fire that roared up, creating an instant wall of flame between them and the Veridian thugs. Go! Elara yelled, grabbing Kaelen's arm again. They burst out the back door into the storm, the heat of the fire at their backs momentarily battling the icy wind. Rain instantly soaked them. Kaelen pointed a trembling hand south, along the cliff edge. That way. Follow the path. The Lumen shows the safe route. Elara ran, half carrying Kaelen, the strange vision granted by the Lumen guiding her. She saw the treacherous path not just as rocks and mud, but as a shifting tapestry of stability and danger Safe footholds glowing faintly blue, unstable ledges pulsing red, hidden crevices revealed in the energy signature. Without it, she would have fallen a dozen times. The Veridian patrol craft were now visible closer in, their crimson beams sweeping the cliffs, searching for them. One beam locked onto them as they scrambled down a particularly steep section. Target acquired. Shore party, converge. A voice boomed from a speaker on the lead craft. Energy bolts, searing crimson lances, sizzled through the rain, impacting the rocks just feet behind them, spraying hot shrapnel. Elara ducked, pulling Kaelen down behind a large boulder. The impact vibrated through the stone. Kaelen cried out, the jolt aggravating his wound. The cave. He gasped mentally, his connection flickering. Just beyond the headland. The Lumen's vision flickered too, the pain in Elara's arm intensifying to a white-hot agony. She gritted her teeth, pushing through it. Hold on, Kaelen. She hauled him up again, sprinting the last 100 yards along the cliff edge. Below, the waves crashed with terrifying force against the black rocks. She saw it, a narrow rocky spur jutting out, and behind the thin veil of a rain-fed waterfall cascading down the cliff face, a dark opening in the rock. The smuggler's cave. They reached the spur. The path narrowed to a treacherous ledge barely 2 feet wide, slick with spray. The Veridian craft were closing in, one maneuvering perilously close to the shore, its searchlight pinning them. Another energy bolt struck the rock spur just ahead, shattering it, creating a gap of several feet between them and the waterfall entrance. No, Kaelen moaned, seeing the gap. The tide was rising fast, the water swirling hungrily below. Elara looked at the churning gap, then at the Veridian craft, now only a few 100 yards out, its weapon ports glowing ominously red. She looked at Kaelen, his face pale, his golden eyes filled with resignation. She looked at the faint blue mark on her wrist, throbbing with heat and pain. The Lumen. It bends gravity. Kaelen's earlier, fragmented thoughts surfaced. Can it do it again? She projected desperately. For me? Just once. Kaelen met her gaze, understanding dawning. It will hurt badly, and it may damage the bond permanently. But, yes, focus on the other side. Think of flying, not falling. Elara took a deep, shuddering breath, the storm whipping her hair across her face. She focused every ounce of will, every shred of hope, on the solid rock beyond the gap. She felt the Lumen respond, not with warmth, but with a searing, tearing sensation deep within her bones. The world seemed to tilt. She grabbed Kaelen tightly with one arm, planted her feet, and leapt. For a terrifying second, they hung in the air, suspended over the raging maelstrom below. The Veridian energy bolt sizzled harmlessly through the space they had just occupied. Then, with a sickening lurch, gravity reasserted itself, but not before they cleared the gap, landing hard on the wet rock on the other side, rolling through the icy curtain of the waterfall and into the dark, echoing mouth of the cave. Elara lay gasping, her entire body feeling like it had been torn apart and hastily reassembled. The blue mark on her wrist now a raw, burning scar. Kaelen lay beside her, unconscious, but breathing. They were safe. For now. The cave was dry, smelling of damp stone and ancient salt. Elara crawled to the entrance, peering out through the waterfall. The Veridian craft circled the cove like sharks, their beams searching the cliffs, but the waterfall and the cave's natural camouflage hid the entrance. They couldn't see in, but they also couldn't leave. The tide was rising rapidly, cutting off the land route back. They were trapped until low tide, hours away. As Kaelen slowly regained consciousness, propped against the cave wall, he explained more. The Lumen wasn't just power. It was a sentient fragment of a stellar phenomenon, a symbiotic life form that bonded with compatible hosts. Veridian Corp, a ruthless interstellar conglomerate, had discovered how to forcibly extract and weaponize lumens, causing ecological collapse on Kaelen's homeworld, Aethel. He was a scientist, part of a resistance cell. Stealing the last pure Lumen was their final hope. Its bond with Elara was unprecedented, a human host. Veridian scanners were tuned to detect the Lumen's unique energy signature, which was now intrinsically linked to her biology. They wouldn't stop hunting. "We need to get the Lumen back to my people," Kaelen said aloud now, his voice weak but clearer, the mental link stabilizing as he recovered slightly. "There is a rendezvous point, a dormant relay buoy, far out in the Atlantic Trench, but Veridian patrols, they control the skies and seas." Elara looked at the burning scar on her wrist, then at the fierce determination in Kaelen's golden eyes. She thought of her quiet life, the grief that had driven her here, the crushing loneliness. This was terrifying, impossible, but it was also alive. It had purpose. "How do we get there?" she asked. Kaelen pointed towards the back of the cave. "The sea caves. They connect to deeper tunnels. At low tide, we can walk through the rock, reach a hidden cove, where my emergency beacon might still function, but Veridian, they will be waiting for us to emerge." The hours crawled by. They shared water from Elara's canteen and some hardtack biscuits. Kaelen taught her to modulate the Lumen's connection, dampening its signature slightly, making them harder to pinpoint, though it increased the discomfort for her. She learned to see the subtle energy flows in the rock, the telltale signs of structural weakness. As the tide finally began to recede, revealing the path through the sea caves, a dark, dripping tunnel lit only by the faint bioluminescence of algae and the soft glow of Elara's scar, they prepared to move. The journey through the caves was claustrophobic and treacherous. Elara led, her Lumen-enhanced sight guiding them through the labyrinthine passages, avoiding hidden sinkholes and unstable sections. Kaelen leaned on her, his strength slowly returning. They could hear the Veridian craft still patrolling the cove above, the thrum of their engines vibrating through the rock. The tension was suffocating. Finally, they emerged into a small crescent-shaped cove, sheltered by high cliffs on 3 sides. The storm had finally blown itself out, leaving a bruised twilight sky. On the rocky shore, half buried in seaweed, was a small, disc-shaped device glowing with a soft, steady green light. Kaelen's beacon. "Thank the stars," Kaelen whispered, rushing towards it. He activated it, pressing his palm against a central node. It pulsed brighter. "It's working. The signal is sent. Aethelian rescue will come, within hours." But their relief was short-lived. The thrum of engines grew louder, closer. 3 Veridian patrol craft, black silhouettes against the dying light, rounded the headland and entered the cove, cutting off the open sea. Searchlights pinned them on the rocky shore. Figures in armored suits leapt onto the rocks, weapons raised. "End of the line, alien," a harsh voice amplified by a speaker declared. "Surrender the Lumen symbiote. The human is expendable." Kaelen stepped in front of Elara, his posture defiant despite his weakness. "You will never have it. It chooses its host. It chose her." Elara felt the Lumen scar flare hot. She looked at the Veridian soldiers advancing, then at the beacon pulsing steadily on the rocks. She looked at the high cliffs surrounding the cove, at the deep, still water lapping at the shore. An idea sparked, born of desperation and the strange knowledge the Lumen had imprinted on her, knowledge of energy flows, of resonance, of the immense power contained within the ocean itself. "Kaelen," she said, her voice steady, "how does the Lumen interact with large-scale energy?" He understood instantly, his golden eyes widening with dawning hope. "It resonates, it amplifies natural forces, but the ocean, the scale, it's our only shot," Elara said. She turned to face the Veridian commander, who was now only 20 yards away, his weapon aimed directly at her heart. "You want the Lumen? Come and get it," she shouted, a reckless challenge. As the commander sneered and took another step forward, Elara did the opposite of what he expected. She turned her back on him and ran towards the water, straight into the cove. Elara, no, Kaelen cried, but he followed. Stop them, the commander yelled. Energy bolts sizzled past, impacting the water, sending up plumes of steam. Elara waded into the icy water, up to her knees, then her waist, the Lumen scar blazing like a brand. She focused not on flight, but on connection. She reached out with her mind, guided by the Lumen's presence, feeling the immense, slow pulse of the tidal currents, the deep pressure of the ocean floor, the latent energy of the water itself. She didn't try to control it. She tried to resonate with it, to amplify its natural rhythm, to create a harmonic feedback loop focused on the narrow mouth of the cove. The water around her began to churn, not violently, but with a deep, rhythmic pulse. The Lumen scar burned with excruciating pain, threatening to consume her. She screamed, but held her focus. Kaelen waded in beside her, placing his hands on her shoulders, adding his own connection to the Lumen, stabilizing her, sharing the burden. The water's pulse intensified. The surface began to rise, not in a wave, but in a sudden, localized bulge, right at the narrow entrance to the cove. The Veridian craft, caught off guard, were slammed by the unexpected surge. The leading craft, directly in the path of the bulge, was lifted violently, its engine screaming as it was tossed sideways like a toy, crashing against the cliff face with a sickening crunch of metal. The other two were caught in the powerful backwash as the water, having expended its focused energy, rushed out of the cove with equal force, dragging the remaining craft helplessly towards the open sea, their engines overwhelmed. Silence descended, broken only by the lapping water and the crackle of the damaged Veridian craft against the rocks. Elara collapsed into Kaelen's arms, the Lumen scar fading to a dull throb, the connection feeling fragile but intact. The Veridian soldiers on shore were scrambling, dazed, their mission in ruins. Hours later, under a sky dusted with the first stars, a soft, silvery light illuminated the cove. A vessel, impossibly graceful and seemingly grown from light and crystal, descended silently from the heavens, landing on the water without a ripple. Aethelian rescuers emerged, beings of similar ethereal beauty to Kaelen, their eyes glowing with compassion. Kaelen turned to Elara, his golden eyes filled with profound gratitude and sorrow. My people are safe now, thanks to you. The Lumen is secure, but I must go with them. Aethel needs me. Elara touched the faint, now barely visible blue tracery on her wrist. The connection was there. A quiet hum. A sense of vastness just beneath the surface of her world. I know, she said, her voice thick. You have a home to rebuild. Kaelen took her hands. The bond remains. Elara Vance, the Lumen chose you for a reason. It is part of you now, a bridge between our worlds. You are not alone in the dark anymore. He placed a small, smooth stone in her palm. It was warm, and pulsed with a gentle, familiar light. A focus. A way to call, should you ever need us, or should the stars ever need a guardian on Earth. He stepped back towards the waiting vessel. As it rose silently into the night sky, vanishing into the starfield, Elara stood alone on the rocky shore. The grief for her lost family was still there, a familiar ache, but it no longer felt like the only truth. The world felt different. Not smaller, but larger. Infinitely more wondrous, more dangerous, more connected. She looked down at the softly glowing stone in her hand, then up at the vast, star-strewn sky. The Atlantic wind, no longer a howling banshee but a gentle sigh, carried the scent of salt and possibility. She wasn't just the lighthouse keeper anymore. She was something more. She turned and began the walk back up the cliff path, the light from the Blackrock Cove beacon, a human-made star, guiding her way, the quiet hum of the starlight within her a constant comforting companion in the immense, beautiful dark. The solitude remained, but the loneliness was gone, replaced by the profound understanding that she was a single, vital thread in the vast, shimmering tapestry of the cosmos. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning.